Max, you know what?
What?
Basketball was invented in Springfield, Massachusetts in the year of 1891.
What does this have to do with the Mahwah project?
It doesn't. Let's get more on focus. Mahwah project. Take one. Mahwah project with Brennan D and if you're gonna laugh, it's not gonna work.
Good day, and welcome to the Mahwah Hour. In this section, we'll be covering the old homes in Mahwah. First up is the Crocker Mansion. The estate was first purchased by Alfred B. Darling in 1872 to build a racetrack and stable for trotters. Trotters are a type of racing where a cart is carrying a jockey on a small board with wheels, and is it attached to the horse. I have drawn a small diagram here, and it's going to on display in the Louvre next week.
Trotters by Max Rutherford in the Louvre next week.
Darling's money came from the hotel business. Darlington was named after Darling, a very rich man that lived in Mahwah. He owned 100 to 200 acres on the mansion's property. George Crocker then later acquired the property from Darling in 1896, and he began the construction of the $2 million prolific mansion that we know today. Crocker made his money from his deceased father's fortune under stipulation that he would remain sober. Drinking was a very big problem during the late 1800s, and many people were suffering from alcoholism and things of that sort, and his father wanted to go off into the next life knowing that his son was sober, and he left him all of his money in return. So, Crocker builds a mansion, but to his dismay, contracts cancer shortly after living in the mansion for only 1 year. His wife later contracted cancer after 2 years. The mansion was built between 1902 and 1907. One highlight of the mansion is the two-story organ that is very prolific of the mansion, and it's a beautiful thing to see when you first see it. The family moved in 2008 and renovated the inside mainly. Outside of the house could not be renovated due to the historic atmosphere of the house. Inside, they built in a theater room, a pre-theater room, which you would go in and have drinks and food before you went into the theater. A little impractical in my mind, but people do what they want with their money. There's a rooftop terrace, a wine cellar, and a humidor cigar room. Also, there's a hot tub room and a massage room. Stay tuned. After the break, we have a brief history on George Crocker coming right up.
Thanks, Max.
George Crocker. He inherits his money, and he moved from California to New York. He expanded the family business to banks, railroads, chemicals, gas, sugar, coal, and land. Very smart businessman, because during this time, all those businesses were just rising and rising and rising, and turning over more and more money. He also had a townhouse in New York and a villa in Newport. He modeled the house after the Bramshall estate in England, and that estate is the home to Prince Henry. It's modeled after the Jacobean style, very tasteful style of the 1600s. There's beautiful wood carvings inside the home done by John Elliott from Philadelphia. It took 4 years to finish the wood carvings in that place. It is amazing. ceilings were designed by Tiffany in the Renaissance style. The property was later purchased by Emerson Macmillan in 1910. It was first used as a country club in 1925, as Emerson did not want to live there anymore, moved on to bigger and better things. Macmillan offered the mansion to be used as the World Court shortly after the period of the First World War. The modern-day World Court is in the Netherlands right now. It's called The Hague. George Crocker died at the age of 78.
And he decides who to free and who to blame. Everybody won't be treated all the same. There'll be a golden ladder reaching down when the man comes around.
And we're back with the Havemeyer Mansion. In the late 19th century, the Rampo Valley became the site for development of estates by many wealthy families. One prominent family was the Havemeyer family, who arrived in the 1870s. Theodore was a founder of the American Sugar Company. He purchased and renovated a home on Route 202, across from what is now the Rampo College, and turned his 1,000-plus acres into a farm. He then built a mansion for one of his daughters, which was completed in 1889. The mansion and about 700 acres were later purchased by Stephen Birch, president of the Kennecott Copper Company, and eventually became an administration building for Rampo College. During this time, the family owned many estates, including a townhouse on Madison Avenue in New York City, a mansion on Bellevue Avenue in Newport, Rhode Island, and 500 acres in Mahwah, New Jersey, called Mountainside Farm. 300 acres of the Mahwah estate is currently the campus of Rampo College of New Jersey. The house that Havemeyer and his family lived in now is the home to the college's president and the house that the Havemeyers built for his daughter Lily. As part of the estate, it currently stands as the administration building for the college. After the break, more on Theodore Havemeyer.
The moon hanging over a cardboard seat, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believe in me. It is on the canvas.
And we're back with a brief history on Theodore Havemeyer. Born in 1839, Havemeyer soon aspired to be a successful American businessman who was the first president of the U.S. Golf Association and co-founder of the Newport Country Club. They hosted the first U.S. Amateur and the first U.S. Open in 1895. Havemeyer was born to William Frederick Havemeyer. Theodore's grandfather, a German immigrant, came to the United States in 1802 and started a sugar refining company with his brother, and Theodore's father started his own firm called Havemeyer and Elder.
What more can you hear? The siren of responding volunteers to the fire in the Fardale area. Cut.
Hello, and welcome to the Wagner household. I'm standing here today to tell you some historic facts on the old Wagner residence. First off, it was built in 1928 by the man he's named Pop. We don't know any more about him, but we're said that he likes to usually burst bubbles and things, and that's how he has his nickname Pop. I'm going to take you around the front and show you these beautiful rocks on the structures, which are said to have been all taken from the property when it was first built. It was an old chicken farm, and Colin's great-grandfather built it. They ran a business of sports souvenirs out in this building over here. It was originally a chicken coop, but dug out the floor for manufacturing and other needs. In 1947, the Van Dynes moved in. Van Dynes are Colin's mother's family. They formed a business of sports souvenirs right on the very property of the Wagner family. The business consisted of
Colin's great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather. They shared the wealth as well as the benefits. See these stones? They're all from the property of the Wagner brothers. These walls are 16 inches thick. If someone screamed on the other side of the walls, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. Come and film in on these beautiful rocks.
Look at that quality. Let me get it.
That's some pure quality rock right there.
Whew. Look at that. That's majestic. El Rancho. Here we are at the factory of Van Dyne Brothers. They were a sports novelty shop manufacturer. They manufactured sports novelty equipment in this area. You can see a panoramic view of this. Examples of this include items such as baseball bats that were turned into pens, keychains, or in fact turned into pencils as well. Pencils. Over here, they also manufactured things like cups that would have the names of teams on them. Here we go. So now, every single baseball team in the major leagues at the time they manufactured. Here we got one example: the San Francisco Giants. Let's get another one out. Montreal Expos. This actually happens to be an Arizona Diamondbacks pencil. I don't know why it's in the Montreal Expos box, but here, an example of a keychain. You can see the difference is that it has a hole here instead of at the top. Some of the ink that they would put in there. And as a matter of fact, everybody in our classes is going to receive a free Louisville Slugger Van Dyne Company baseball bat, courtesy of me, and me only. Not them, not Brennan and Max, just me. Just me. So don't forget that, just me. I gave you a free baseball bat. Use it in school. I don't know, play baseball with it in the desks. Annoy your teachers, I don't care. Thank you.
Okay, here we are again with the old homes of Mahwah portion of the Mahwah project with Max Rutherford. This is 170 Youngs Road, Mahwah, New Jersey, my current residence. The house was built in 1950 by Hugo Milano. Him and his wife moved in 1950, shortly after it was built. The wife's name is Jean Milano. Hugo Milano was a mason, and he conducted a masonry business out of the back portion of the house back there. I'll take you back there in a minute. There's the front part. They lived in it through the late 70s until there was a court-ordered cleanup on the masonry business that Hugo conducted. In the back here, there's a garage. Another family moved in the late 70s after the Milano family moved out. And my stepdad bought the house in 1993. Been living there. And we renovated the house in 2003, partially. Yeah. Front view of the house. And front lawn, there's Youngs Road. Long driveway. Tree. As I mentioned before, Hugo Milano worked as a stonemason and conducted most of his business in what is now the backyard here. Excuse all the dirt and stuff. We just renovated. And beyond this gate was more and more stone and tools, and it piled and piled up until eventually in 1974, before our family moved in, there was a court-ordered cleanup, And shortly after, the residents moved out and the business was disbanded. The woods back here. It was just Hugo Milano and Jean Milano until a family of 4 moved in after them in the late 70s. There's a view of the woods, of the backyard, and out through here. Long view of the driveway. Okay, now I have some pictures for you from the mid to late 70s of the back of the yard when Hugo Milano and family owned it as a masonry. Just one picture, some stones, and the trees, the back of the house. Again, backyard. Etc., etc. You get the gist. It was in tatters, and when the neighbors complained, it was brought to court, and Hugo was forced to clean up, and then probably moved out about a year or so later.
And action. Damn, that stuff is strong. Thank you for joining us. This is another fine episode of Churches in Mahwah. Today we'll be exploring the history of the AME Zion Church, as well as Church of the Immaculate Conception. We will take a visit to the Lutheran Cemetery. First, we'll start with the Zion Church. The church is located on 106 Grove Street, out in the Island Road section of Mahwah. Originally a schoolhouse, it was moved 3 times before it came to its final resting place. It's a very small building, it seats just over 50. It's primarily served the mountain people, but yet it also attracted several families of black people. When the Pentecostal church was built on the same road, the mountain people moved out, and the blacks moved in even more. In 1953, a community room was expanded into the basement of the building, and in 1958, a chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was founded there. Many members of the church were active in the civil rights movement. And this concludes our recap of the Mount Zion AME Church. After the break, we'll have the Church of the Immaculate Conception. Thank you. Stay tuned.
This is the Mount Zion AME Zion Church. As you can see, it was, actually you can't see that. It was established in 1857. And, Reverend Kenneth P. Herman Sr. He's the pastor at the church. And, as you can see, it's a very old building. It's very small. And it was relocated 3 times. It is also close to other churches around the area, and talk about that more in the next section.
And welcome back to this episode of Churches in Mahwah. Before the break, we talked to you about the Mount Zion AME Church. And now, we'll begin to talk about the Church of the Immaculate Conception. It was originally founded in the year of 1928. Currently, the pastor is Father Bill Sheridan. The church is located on Darlington Avenue. At this time, it was just an adjunct of the Immaculate Conception Seminary, located in the Crocker Mansion. In 1929, a school opened in the St. Thomas House. Can't get over how strong and served 17 students. It is. This concludes our recap of the Church of the Immaculate Conception. After the break, we'll finally come with that exciting exploration of the Lutheran graveyard. Can't miss it. Can't wait. Stay tuned. In 1930, its official certificate of incorporation was issued. Also in 1930, the first 2 students ever graduated in the commencement ceremony. Later in 1932, the groundbreaking was held for the new church building, and in 1933, the first wedding was held between James Dooley and Margaret Wheely. The first baptismal font was built in the sanctuary. Reverend W. Gordon Byrne became the first resident pastor, and in 1956, the rectory was built. In the following 2 years, 4 more classrooms were added to the school. In 1962, Father Thomas Gillick became the pastor of this church. Then in 1968, the sanctuary was renovated and a new altar was installed. In 1972, construction began on a new parish center and classrooms. In 1976, the first parish council was established, and in 1978, Eucharistic ministers, lectors, and greeters were instituted. Unfortunately, in the year of 1981, a shrinking enrollment forced the school to close down. But a year later, volunteers renovated the church's interior. Also, the beautiful stained glass windows were installed in the year of 1982 in memory of Father John Finn. In 1984, the Risen Christ statue was donated, and in 1986, the Benway School leases some classrooms. In 1987, even more stained glass was put into the church, and in 1988, the Parish Finance Council was established. In 1992, Reverend Chris Byrne was established as the new pastor. In 1993, the RCIA ministry was established. In 2001, the ICAPS Adult Parishioners Group was formed, and in 2002, renovations to Marion Hall were finished. In 2005, Reverend John Ryan was established as the new pastor. Welcome back. Here we are again, returning to the Lutheran Church Cemetery. Little known fact, it was established by the Germans that lived to the west of the Rhine River. They came here to escape poor economic situations back in their home country, but whether it was successful or not, I don't think we'll ever know. As you can see, there's tons of dead people around here. Just freaking dead people. And one cemetery over here has no name. No name on that one. April 8th, 1713. Immigrants from the Palatine district of the area west of the Rhine River come over from Germany. Religious freedom, economic distress, and frequent wars, the driving factors for their migration. The Lutheran congregation, later called the Ramapo Evangelical Lutheran Church, was one of the first to come over from the terrible lands of Germany. The original log church and a larger replacement stood about 1/4 miles from this site. The first dated stones comes from 1754, and the last stone is dated 1868, just after the Civil War ended. The cemetery was perhaps not established next to the church because the hill was less suited to agriculture than other surrounding lands. In 1775, the Lutherans sold their interest in the building to the Reformed congregation. The Lutheran congregation was reorganized on Airmont Avenue, just over the New York State boundary during the 1850s. Its members began to use the cemetery there, and this one fell into disuse.
Yeah, and I did what anyone else would do. I took the belt off my neck and I got out of there. I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? Bar mitzvahs, whatever. I'll call you back. Ah, hello. Didn't see you there. My name's Brennan D, and we have a very special segment on the Mahwah Hour. As you can see, this old phone is actually a part of the exhibit at the Mahwah Museum. It's a tad bit interesting. Mahwah has its own museum. Well, it was actually Eleanor Bugg's old house, which was turned into the first library. Well, not the first library, obviously, but Mahwah's first library. But, well, they've been, most of the archives that belong to the archive room in the museum collection have been accumulated since 1965. Now you may be saying, wow, that's a long time. You're right, it is. And they include many 17th and 18th century documents, maps, vertical files, that's what that means, manuscript collections, newspapers, oral histories, video recordings. In the archive room, many archives include 17th and 18th century documents, maps, vertical files, manuscript collections, newspapers, oral histories, video recordings, books on disc, and other materials. It's a vast collection of information, not only about Mahwah, but about everything that has to relate with Mahwah. Currently, oh, balls. Wait, I don't even know what I wrote. Along with the 17th and 18th century documents, the Francis Furman collection contains 18th century manuscripts that relate mainly to the Hopper family who settled in this part of Franklin Township in about 1742. And when I mean this part of Mahwah, I mean around where the Mahwah Museum is, which is like, you know, Mahwah proper, Cragmere, that sort of section. And in the Francis Furman collection, there are also deeds. There are deeds, contracts, and mortgages. Whole mortgages. Come here. The Edith Glasgow collection contains 18th century manuscripts, also like the Furman collection, collected by none other than Edith Glasgow, a lifelong resident of the township, so there's something you didn't know, who is a founding spirit of the Mahwah Historical Society, a predecessor to the Mahwah Museum. So before the Mahwah Museum, obviously we had the Mahwah Historical Society, but we'll get to that at a later date. There are interesting letters and legal documents in the Glasgow collection, not found in the Furman collection. Also, the overseers of the Franklin Township is a copy of a record of the body when Mahwah was still located in the Franklin Township, which was between 1777 and 1849. And it describes the recipients of public assistance and the contributors to that fund. Washington's account book is also a copy of the accounts of General George Washington, none other than our first president of our wonderful country of America, when he was serving as the commanding general of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. We will talk about exhibits that are currently in the Mahwah Museum after this short break. Signing off. And we're back with the Mahwah Museum section of the Mahwah Hour with Brennan D. In the Mahwah Museum, there are currently two big exhibits that are not there all the time. One of them being the sesquicentennial anniversary of the American Civil War, which opened on March 10th, 2012, which is referred to as the New Jersey Fights in the Civil War, Remembering Soldiers Buried in Mahwah, where many of the not survivors, but the survivors who passed down anything to do with, tools, guns, clothing, pass it down to their family members, and those family members donated it to the Mahwah Museum to put on an exhibit, which will be given back to the people once the exhibit is over. We're going to show a clip of that, so show you a clip of that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Les Paul.
No, Jay Moore, him, shut up, I can do what I want, until you...
Are you recording that?
On our way out, it's Max's girlfriend right there, looking stunning as always.
Just a quick recap. Just go around, look at stuff. Just so I know what's on.
Okay. Have a good day. Good luck. Bye. I don't know because I'm still working on it.
Another shot of Max's girlfriend right there. Dazzling as always.
Hope you liked that video. In this next part, we're going to talk about the Les Paul exhibit. It's mainly talking about, Les Paul and his one-of-a-kind precious guitars made especially for Les, his enthusiastic support for many current-day artists, a recreation of the stereo. It was actually really cool. We have a video of that, of the studio of which Les did his work. It was actually really interesting. It looked very authentic. A performance space where, at special times, patrons can play one of Les's guitars, which sadly we did not have the opportunity to do, and many hands-on video and audio displays. There are TVs scoured throughout the Mahwah Museum that explain Les Paul and his adventure through life at Mahwah. He actually grew up in Mahwah, but he also produced and recorded one of his shows here. But actually, Les Paul would have preferred to have his collection in the Smithsonian, but they sadly declined. So he went to the Mahwah Museum. The Les Paul Foundation donated many of his guitars and other items relating to Les Paul and put them on exhibit, which they will be returned once the exhibit is over. And yeah, it's the Mahwah Museum. As you can tell, many of the exhibits relate to Mahwah, like the history of the Civil War and many of the guns on collection. It really shows the progression of Mahwah and how it went from a settlement to a booming suburban community where memories can be, transferred. And without these people donating their exhibit stuff, we would never have known. As for Les Paul, Mahwah isn't just that town that no one's ever heard of. It was actually very important, especially to people who, outside people. They come to Mahwah. It's a crossroads not only of people, but of ideas and dreams. Thank you. During my many hairless adventures through the Mahwah Museum, we saw an exhibit that was very interesting in its own sense because it was made by the Mahwah Museum, the people that work there, obviously. It was a topographic map. It was one 6,000th scale. So it was it showed a very large area of Mahwah, and on the wall behind it there was the topographic map, and on the wall behind it was a board and it was divided into 4 sections, and it had different colored lights, and every time you would press a button, those lights on the map would match up with the lights on the board, and they would, show you the different time periods of Mahwah and how it progressed and became more of a community. It went from the Ramapo Mountains to where we started settling towards the flatter part of the area, which became more popular and more suburban because it was easier to live on flatlands than it is in the mountains. But many people today still prefer to live in the mountains due to their own reasons. But it was very interesting because you sat there and you learned a lot about Mahwah while actually seeing at the same time where everything was happening. Because I could just be telling you all of this, but if you actually saw it, it'd be a lot easier to comprehend. It's very interesting, to say the least, because you can learn so much about it just by looking at different colors and, the trails where people used to walk while, where Mahwah progressed. It showed many topographic maps, showed many important sites, many rivers, like the Ramapo River, and the just everything, important buildings down to there was a map to the right wall to the topographic map that showed little pins of all the houses of Mahwah, like residential homes, and it's fun to go there and think, well, gee, look, there's my house. But about 200 years ago, I can find my house here, and gee, what a difference it's made. Because, as you know, you will learn about old homes with Max Rutherford, and many of them you will see from a time period you will see in the next time period. Stuff like that you can learn from going to the Mahwah Museum. I had no idea that certain trails were. I didn't know some things, and then I saw the map, and then because someone can tell you something, and you can learn it. But once they show you something and tell you it at the same time, it's easier to learn, and you can comprehend it better, and you connect with it. I connected with my home location in the 18th century. I mean, come on, where else can you do that? Mahwah Museum, that's where. Topographic map. It's a no-brainer. If you haven't already been there, or if you don't live in Mahwah, and you want to learn more about Mahwah, don't go online, because there is little to nothing on Mahwah online. I recommend to you to just go to the Mahwah Museum. You donate a little bit of money if you want, because you gotta keep it up to par with other township museums, which I don't even think other township have museums. Could be wrong, but they're not as great as the Mahwah Museum. Show your appreciation, learn something new, and check out that topographic map and hit them buttons. It's been Brennan D. It's a great time talking to you. Stay beautiful. Just say something.
Well, you want to know about the Crocker Mansion? The Crocker Mansion was originally, about 1950, was housed the seminarians. There were over 200 students, and the local fire company, our fire company 4, was a place that you came to vote, and all the seminarians would come down at one time to vote, and all the women made cakes, a cake sale, and then in much later the seminarians left because the property was sold. The New York Diocese sold it to the builders, and they converted the where the seminaries slept. They converted those dormitories into apartments, and they sold for a lot of money. And the chapel, that's why they used to have the church services in, was used as a, they had midnight services for all one of the church, when people would go there. But the builder, when they started to build houses, the chapel was converted into a
Catering hall?
like a community clubhouse, and people would go there to socialize. It was no longer the chapel. And the Crocker Mansion, the main house, is still there, and it's beautiful inside, beautiful woodwork, and a pipe organ, magnificent. I understand just recently, a year and a half ago, it was sold, the mansion, to a couple who lived in Mahwah, and they have one daughter, and they're not living in it, that anybody knows. I don't know what, they just bought it, they're renovating it. That's as much as I know about that.
All right. Hello. We're here with a friend of my mother's, a long-term resident, Mrs. Marie Penna, in her house in Mahwah, and gonna interview her. So thank you. Mrs. Penna, how long have you lived in Mahwah?
Since 1952. That's 60 years, I think. It's a long time. When we first came here, there weren't as many, very few houses. Now it's
The dirt roads and stuff.
big changes.
Yeah.
Can you give us a list of some major changes you've seen,
Well,
or maybe a few?
many changes. There was it was just the woods all around. There were 3 houses across the street. There were no houses on this side. That side was the kennel, ideal kennel. And down that way there were maybe 3 or 4 houses. The rest of the woods.
A lot more sparse then.
Huh?
A lot more sparse, the population.
No, I think when we came, there were 400 people in Fardale.
Oh.
Alright.
This is the Fardale section of Mahwah.
Yeah.
And there was just 400 people. I don't know how many there are now.
Probably 5,000, I'd say.
What, in Fardo?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, probably.
Have you been involved in any major decisions that have happened in the town, in the government?
Was I involved? No.
Alright.
I'm not politically attuned.
Do you know any information about the Havemeyer house? Out on
Well, other than having served as on and up a house, I don't really know the story of Havemeyer itself. When it was when they was renovated, I belonged to the Mahwah Women's Club, and we were asked to have women stationed at the various rooms in the house, and we did that. People could come in and see what they did to the house, because my house was owned by the Brennan D college. and the man that was president of the college happened to be his mother.
Now you mentioned the women's club. Were you how long have you been a member of that, or were a member?
What was that?
Yeah.
Until it disbanded. Disbanded about 5 years ago.
Any how did the women's club affect Mahwah, do you think?
Well, originally one was just 400 people. They put out a telephone directory of the people living in this area, and they put signs that say you're entering Mahwah. And Mahwah always come to do a lot of things to the town.
To help, upkeep and things like that?
Really what?
Like upkeep with the town and help it stay current?
Did town help women's club?
No, I don't know. No, I don't know that. I don't know where I was going with that. Do you know much about the Darlington Schoolhouse?
The place on 202?
Yeah.
Well, why was built I don't know. We came in 1952. I don't know what it was before that. Yes I do. It was built by the Havermeyers and the, what's the other one's name? It'll come to me. For their children to go to two estates, one on the side and one on the other side. Do you remember the name of that family?
Yes, it was the Havermeyers,
And
they were their family fortune was from the Domino, what evolved into the Domino Sugar. They were the proprietors of the sugar cartel.
The school was built for the people who lived there on the Valley Road. And that was what was built. But after that, after 1950, or thereabouts, it was a dance studio for
That's interesting.
wealthy people. And it was a long time, a dance studio. And then it was vacant, they didn't do anything there.
That's interesting. Do you think about the history of the Mahwah Museum?
Only that, no, when it first became a museum, it was in the original library on the corner of Miller Road. And now it's moved over to the railroad station.
Well, I think some of it's still on the road. Right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, Miller Road and Franklin Turnpike.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the museum is still there. On Miller Road.
The museum is over by the... What's your question?
Just like, have you ever been there?
Yeah. It was very interesting. They didn't have much in it when I was there. I was in it when it was on Franklin Turnpike. They had artifacts from the Ramapo Indians and there were various letters from people who influenced Mahwah, like Fred Warren, who lived on Valley Road, and his daughter she's a good historian.
Alright. Thank you. Do you remember the opening of the Ramapo College?
Do I remember when it was opened?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember the year, but
You remember what it was like? Or
well, it was just one building, and it was nothing like it is now. They've been and added on to it and made bigger and better.
So it was very, very one building, you said? It was just one building, the college used to be?
I don't understand.
You said
Talk better.
the college. It used to be one building.
I think so, yeah.
Much different now. How about the Mahwah school system? Has that changed a lot? The Mahwah school system?
Well, I can tell you from my children, they all went to both of them went to George Washington School to the they only went to the 4th grade. And then they went to Betsy Ross to the 8th grade. And then they went to the high school. And the high school was a disaster because it was, I think, 10 or 15 buildings. They had to walk from outside that with no lockers, no. They had to take their books and carry them from one building to the next. And that was about 20 years of that. Then they built a new high school.
All right. How about religious facilities? Have you? What do you belong to a church?
Say again.
Do you belong to any church in Mahwah?
No, I don't.
All right.
But there's a lot of churches now.
Yeah.
I believe there was only one church. That's the church at the church on Darlington Avenue. Where you go?
Yeah, Immaculate Conception.
That was the only church in this area.
What about any of the cemeteries around Mahwah? Have you do you know anything about them?
Except that it's grown very, very rapidly. When we first came here, in fact, my husband's buried there. It was just a cemetery. Now it's got all kinds of buildings. That one section for Jewish people. A gazebo. It's just beautiful. It's very, very lovely. It's grown tremendously.
Do you remember what made you want to live in Mahwah? Do you remember what made you want to live in Mahwah?
Yes, we got our property for nothing. So we built a house. Freddie's mother and father owned 12 acres here. And they said, well, you want to build a house? And we said, sure. And they gave us 1 acre.
That's nice. Would you recommend living in Mahwah now?
Oh yeah, it's a great town. Great town.
Why do you think you love Mahwah so much?
Well, I like it for the memories that I have here. And the kids went to school for 13 years in the same school. That's a good reason. And I've made some very fine friends, including your mother, father.
Well, I think that's it. So, thank you.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I'm sorry I don't talk better, but hope I've helped you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
About Mahwah's history, we learn that General George Washington and his troops traversed Mahwah along the Valley Road during the War for Independence. This army was commissioned by the Continental Congress and bivouacked in fields that are now Ramapo College. On our township property, dedicated to recreational use, they foraged for food and fuel and pulled water from the Ramapo. Their valiant hardships have hallowed that ground. Only because of their muscle, blood, and sweat sacrifices, we do enjoy our sweet liberty. By dedicating this property to those first veterans, in a way, we honor all veterans. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand to remember the Continentals and all veterans, those living and those who have crossed the Great Divide.